Some of the interfaces in Java 8. Java 8 has been in for a while now, but not many stuff has been written by people in the screencast or webcast or tutorials. They talk about it, but they don't talk about basics. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to make people understand how the API works. I'm going to take each day some part of code and trying to extrapolate on it. How does this work? Uh, I'm going to start with some interfaces. Java 8 has a bunch of interfaces which are defined in java.util.function. Those are called functional interfaces. What is functional interface? A lot of people talk about it, so I'm not going to talk about it. What is Lambda? A lot of people talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. So I'm going to make you understand how these interfaces interact with each other. I would take up one interface in each tutorial, and I'm going to try and drill it down by a very simple explanation of it. Now today we are talking about a supplier. Supplier is something, as per the definition of Java 8, is a supplier of an objects. A supplier of objects. The result objects are either created during the invocation of get or some other action. This is what Java 8 API says. Now I would elaborate on it by a simple example. I'm going to write some test codes here. So like I wrote a few tests earlier, but I'm going to start fresh here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write each code which will tell you what is a supplier interface. So this test will determine how this behavior is implemented in the API. So I'm going to take a atomic integer here. It could be anything, but I just want to focus on what the code is doing. So I'm going to create a new object here of type atomic integer. So atomic integer is a thread safe integer. People use it a lot. So I have created a atomic integer. Now what context I'm going to be using it for? So the definition says supplier is something which provides an object or a list of objects, and the result could be created by some action. So what is the action here? I don't know yet. So first of all, let's define a supplier. So what supplier is? Supplier is we're going to use some generics here. So I'm going to use a character type here. I'm going to define a supplier. So what supplier does here is it provides a piece of code. So you have to think about those lines here. So I have defined a supplier here. Sorry, the supplier. So now it's going to complain that I need a. So it is coming from java.util.function.supplier. So we need to supply this. So this supplier does is it can take a lambda expression, or it can take any piece of code here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increment this variable. So count. So count is a type, has a method called get and increment. That's what I'm going to do. I was interested in this only. Why was I interested in? Because I want something to supply me a piece of code, and so what it does is, I mean, it supplies a piece of code. Of course we have a. This method doesn't return an object of type character. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this up into a character char. So So now I got is a piece of code which is generating a character. So what it is taking as input, it is taking as an input as nothing. This lambda does is a block of piece of code which shows a list of parameters this lambda function will take. Right now it's nothing. It doesn't take any parameter, but what it does is, this is the function body. After this line, the little arrow here, this provides you the body of the function, the methods originally in Java. So all it does is just whatever the count value here is, it's going to increment, wrap that into a character, and provides me the result each time when I call the get and increment. So whenever this function calls happen, the supplier provides me a new code. So what happens? We have to call a get call on the supplier. Then only is going to increment the value which is stored in this count variable at a particular time and increment it by 1. So that's what I need. So I'm gonna write a small test. I'm gonna write a small test which will say, here what I could do is I'm gonna get a supplier and call a get on it. So what does this do is, it's going to provide me something which is incremented by something. So what I do is, what I expect here is, let's expect A here. What does that tell you here? This means I'm expecting A, so I have to provide something which is an integer value of A. So here, this atomic integer, when you look at the list of options, what it takes is, it takes an int value. It takes atomic integer, has int value, initial value. And I know, and you can Google it, I know that 65, if I give him and increase it to 66, and then that integer value is, when it casts back to character, it gives me an A. You know what I mean? I knew that. So, but I just want to show you how the supply test is written. So here we go. I'm going to run it. I'm going to run this test again, and I want to see this passes. And here you go. It passed. So thank you for watching, and in next lesson I'll take another interface.